If you need a reason to justify why the markets look like this, I'll give you the reason. The reason is because the negotiations between the United States and Iran around their nuclear strategy have failed. And now what Israel says is that Israel is ready to strike Iran. And so the markets are pretty much pricing in the beginning of World War III. And that's why the markets pretty much look like this. You got Bitcoin at 106,828, everything's down, and they got the S&P slightly down. The truth is though that if you're planning to sell any of your coins because of this news, you want to watch the show until the end, because I'm going to show you why if you sell your coins into this news, you're making a very, very, very big mistake. And instead, I'll show you exactly what you should be doing. So if that sounds good to you, this is going to be a very, very, very big show. Let's get the show on the road, guys. I know. It kind of feels like frustrating because we were doing so well, and then World War III almost happened, and now we're getting everything down again, and all the gains that we've made in the last couple of days, all the gains we've made in the last couple of days are basically being given back, or a lot of the gains that we've made in the last couple of days are basically being given back. I'm going to show you now why this is a trap, and why if you land up selling your tokens into this mess, you're going to kick yourself. You're literally going to kick yourself. I'm going to show you how to trade this kind of event. When I say this kind of event, I'm going to show you today that this is actually happening in front of your eyes. 3 of these events are happening at the same time. And these events are basically designed to get you to sell your coins or to part with your wealth. And I'll show you exactly what you should be doing. So that sounds good to you guys. I see only 221 likes with like 1,500 people here. Obliterate the like button. Obliterate the like button. If you're not already subscribed, you want to subscribe. I'll show you at the end why you want to subscribe or why you want to be subscribed. I'm going to get straight into the alpha. So let's get into the alpha. We were doing so well. We looked like we were going to break all-time highs. And then bang, what happened? Well, we got the headlines. The headline said that Israel is ready to strike Iran over its nuclear program. And that is in the US and Iran were actually in negotiations. They were going to negotiate some kind of nuclear deal, or maybe you could say a no nuclear deal for Iran. The negotiations have failed. And now what happens is Israel has basically said that they are prepared and they are ready to strike Iran. And everybody knows that that is Israel's basically dream scenario, to be able to strike Iran with the US actually behind them. And if you look at what the narrative that's playing out in the media is, that's the narrative. Israel fully ready to launch Iran operation. That comes from CBS, and everybody's reporting on it. Trump is playing along here. He was asked why the US were evacuated or are being evacuated from the area, because US citizens are being evacuated from the whole area. This is how he responded. You can listen to this.
An update on Iran. We're hearing reports that US personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simply. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
Basically, the threats are happening all over again. It's going to get messy. It's going to get nasty. They need to be careful. They can have nuclear weapons. Trump was interviewed again. Very short interview.
Why are U.S. dependents of military personnel being authorized to leave the Middle East?
You'll have to wait and see. Wait until tomorrow and see why the US personnel are going to be there. On the other side, there are from Iran. There's also headlines. They're saying Iran is testing advanced two-ton ballistic missile warheads. So you can see that there's a lot of war posturing over here. Obviously, the fear is starting to creep in. Are there going to be supply disruptions when it comes to oil? Are they going to shut the Strait of Hormuz where the oil actually passes through? You can actually see, if you look at the Brent crude oil prices, they are up again. Here we go. You can look at the Brent crude oil price, slightly down, but they were up. They went back up to $69 a barrel. So the markets are pretty much preparing for what could be the beginning of World War III. You've got the Board of Governors, which has passed a resolution declaring Iran in non-compliance with nuclear safeguards. And that effectively gives the USA and other countries license to effectively attack Iran. So there's preparation here for World War III. At the same time, Iran saying, look, if Israel does strike us, we've got hundreds of ballistic missiles ready to strike Israel. And that wouldn't be the first time that they've done that. You'll remember that Israel did strike Iran pretty recently, and it was 8 months ago. And this is what Iran did.
This is a major attack. Jim Sciutto, this is obviously
it's a major attack. There's no question.
You see, they sent multiple, I don't know if you remember
seeing.
that day, they sent multiple missiles. In fact, the biggest missile attack ever on Israel. I think 1 or 2 of those missiles actually landed in Israel, and there was 0 casualties. And this happens again and again and again. So if you're thinking of selling your tokens, I really want to have a discussion with you about this, because every time we get these threats of war or even these invasions, the markets start pricing it as if there's going to be a massive fallout. But if you look at the actual data, what you realize is that after that, literally, you look at the Russia offensive, Ukraine offensive, India offensive, Israel, Gaza invasion. Pretty much every time this happens, the markets price in the worst case scenario. And within a week or within a month, the markets are literally back up again to where we started. You can see it here, Russia-Ukraine. This is the Russia-Ukraine escalation. And you can see it over here, India's Operation Sindhu over here. This was when the precision military strikes happened. You can see that the markets collapsed, and then 12 days later, S&P 500 up 12%. And so there's pretty much a lesson in all of this. And really today is not about Israel and Iran. And, you know, there is a very small possibility that this actually will develop into World War III, but chances are it's not going to be World War III. And chances are this is just a negotiating tactic by Trump. We know how Trump negotiates. He negotiates by showing you what your worst case scenario looks like and then roping you back to the negotiation table, right? It's not the first time that it's happened. Come on, guys. You remember this from when we spoke about tariffs. This is the date that the tariffs were announced. Remember that black end of January, beginning of February? This is what happened when tariffs were announced. And look, we're already back much higher than when the tariffs were actually announced. And pretty much most of those tariffs aren't actually even in place anymore, right? And so I really agree here with Simon Dixon. I agree with Simon Dixon. He says, look, it's all theater. There will be no war between Israel and Iran. Iran's defense minister warns if war breaks out, every US base in the region will be a target. Meanwhile, the US opens voluntary evacuation for military families across the Middle East. Oil sparks 5% and negotiations carry on moving forward, right? The drama is for you. Any strikes are for show to facilitate the negotiations. It's all a negotiating tactic. And in most probabilities, this is not the beginning of World War III. So what is actually happening here? What is actually happening here? Why is this actually happening? And the reality is that the reason why this is happening, or the reason why the markets are down today, is because the markets are moving with the mainstream media headlines, right? So the mainstream media headlines today are focused very, very much on Israel and Iran. And so today, that is the focus of the day. On the 1st of February, the markets were very much focused on tariffs. And this caused the markets to actually start coming down. You can see the markets are starting to come down now because of these headlines, right? These headlines or the mass media narrative is probably the easiest way. If you're going to trade in parallel with the mass media narrative, that is the easiest way for you to lose all your money in crypto and markets. I can guarantee that. And the reason why I know that is because it almost happened to me. When I entered this market, when I entered crypto, I wasn't really very good at markets. I mean, I wasn't in advertising before. And in advertising, we didn't actually have to trade. Like we created campaigns for our clients. And so understanding markets is something that I learned actually on my own skin. Like all the mistakes that I made. And I think the first time that I made a mistake was that I bought Bitcoin for $500. It went to $1,000. Then there was FUD and it went back down to $400. I sold it $400 and I bought the same Bitcoin back on the same day at $700, right? The reason is because I got caught up in the media headlines. And to me, these media headlines are probably the most toxic thing in the world, and probably the easiest way to land up losing your money in crypto. I want to show you another example. I showed you the tariffs. I'm showing you the Israel and Iran strike. But let me show you one that happened a few times, right? Remember when the media was fixated about Elon and how Elon was helping Doge and how people were vandalizing Teslas and how people were vandalizing Elon stores? Remember that whole big narrative, right? Yeah, I'm sure you do. So that, just to get you a thing, was around April 1st. Okay, so you can see that this is the insane wave of vandalism on Elon, and there's a whole tweet thread here. And I only pulled up this tweet thread to show you one thing, just to show you the date. And the date was April 1st. Let's go back to the Tesla chart on April 1st. It is over here, somewhere around here. Look at where the Tesla chart was. It was at $240. It was pretty much near the bottom, right? This is the area where everybody was vandalizing Teslas and Tesla stores, and the media were fixated about how the public were never ever going to buy Teslas ever again, and this is the end of Elon, and Tesla's going to go down the toilet because Elon's aligned himself with the Republicans, and. Turns out that was right now the best buying opportunity that you would have had in this cycle to actually buy Tesla. And if you did, well, today you'd be 42% up on a stock, not even on a crypto asset, right? And so again, if you follow the mainstream headlines and the mainstream narratives, you're going to get destroyed. I'll give another example, right? Well, hold on a second. Is this guy really doing what I thought he was taking shit? Okay, let me give you another example, right? The most recent Elon and Trump breakup, which had the media fixated. I know because I'm a Tesla holder. When Tesla was being vandalized, I often thought maybe I should be selling my Tesla shares. When the mainstream media reported about the breakup between Trump and Elon, that was here on Friday, right? That was what happened. Tesla went down to $272. 3 days later, everything is okay, and Tesla's back at $324, right? So, and you would have made yourself 20% in a weekend, right? So I hope I'm showing you a pattern here. I hope I'm showing you that if you trade with the mainstream media headlines, or if you're doing anything because of the news cycle, then really you have a problem, because you're going to end up losing all your money. And I'm about to show you the next trick that the mainstream media are going to play on you, or the next narrative that the establishment is going to play on you, because they started to leak it yesterday. And the next narrative that they're going to start playing on you is going to be the debt ceiling, right? Because we know that the US has reached its debt ceiling, which means that it cannot borrow any more debt. So what happens when the US reaches the debt ceiling? The Democrats and the Republicans need to negotiate to increase the debt ceiling, right? Now, let me tell you how these negotiations play out. The Democrats are going to say there's no way that they're going to approve raising the debt ceiling, because that's the playbook. And then the Republicans are going to come out and say, well, if we don't raise the debt ceiling, then the US may go into default, and that could be the end of the world. And you can see that narrative is already starting. Yesterday, Scott Bessent actually came out and he said, failure to address the debt limit could lead to the biggest debt crisis since 2008. And this happens. Now everybody's getting scared. What if, God forbid, they don't raise the US debt ceiling? We're going to get into the biggest financial crisis since 2008. I mean, imagine that. The US is actually going to default on its debt. I mean, can you imagine that? The US is probably the country with the world's global reserve currency. It's got $37 trillion of debt held by different nations and different people. And if they don't raise the debt limit, then this debt all actually becomes worthless, because it shows that the US is insolvent. And so right now, the headlines are saying that the US, if it fails to raise the debt limit, we're going to get this massive financial crisis. And as you can see, all the news outlets are out with the same story right now. As someone says, Alex Wells says, it's an emergency. It's an emergency. I want to remind you there was also an emergency on Thursday, the January 19th, 2023. They were talking about extreme measures because the Democrats and the Republicans couldn't agree. Let's go to the markets. January, what did we say it was? January 19th, 2023. It was Thursday. Let's find a chart here. Let's go to the SP 500. SP 500. And let's go to January 2023. January 2023. January, here it is. We're going to have to make it a bit, not that big. Okay, here we go. January 2023. I imagine it's somewhere here. So January 2023, markets go down. Why are markets going down? Because the US debt ceiling is, again, not going to be raised. And everyone's scared that the US won't raise its debt ceiling. Surprise, surprise. Every single time this happens, the debt ceiling actually gets raised. Why? Because neither the Democrats nor the Republicans can actually afford for the US to default on its debt, right? And so they will never allow for it to happen. And so in the next couple of months, because they have until about July to negotiate this, they want this before the recess, you're going to hear a lot of things about the debt ceiling and how the media is going to start being fixated about how they're not going to increase the debt ceiling. And because they're not going to increase the debt ceiling, there's a good chance that the US may default. Okay, the US ain't going to default, and the debt ceiling 100% is going to be raised. Mark this timestamp or whatever you do. I don't know, Josh, what do people do for this? Clip this as a reminder that we're going to get into the 90th minute of the game. We're going to get into the final minute, and then you know what they're going to say? They're going to say that they raised the debt ceiling and that they've come to some kind of agreement, and they're going to raise the debt ceiling by probably $4 trillion, and that will carry us through until the next debt ceiling negotiation where the same thing's going to happen. And if you get scared or if you get shaken out by that, then the truth is that you probably shouldn't be trading in markets, right? You probably shouldn't be trading in markets. So how do you beat this? How do you beat this? There really are two ways to beat this game with the media. Well, there's a couple of ways. So the first way to beat this is pretty much to have a narrative or to have a thesis and to stick to your thesis no matter what the hell the headlines are. Okay, now I know it's hard, but one way to do it is not even to read the headlines. Now, I know that some of my charting friends don't read headlines at all. And tomorrow I'm going to bring on a friend of mine. His name is 𝗟𝗓𝗪, and he's the king of not reading news. Like, the guy doesn't know what's happening in the news. Zero, right? He doesn't know what's happening in the news, doesn't care what's happening in the news. He looks at the charts. That's all he actually cares about. So two ways to beat this. Way number one is to have a thesis and to make sure that you don't trade against your thesis regardless of what the news headlines say. It's very, very, very tough to do that because humans are emotional and we read headlines, and headlines make us scared because if the US does default in its debt, then your crypto is probably going to be worth nothing. Who knows what the right outcome is? And so it's very hard to do that. But I think that you can do that. I think that you can do that. The second way to do the second thing that you can do, and this is how I actually learned. I lost money in crypto and in stock markets until I applied this one simple trick. I started two accounts. The first account was my normal account, and the other account was the account where I did the opposite of what I felt like doing. So, for example, when I felt like selling my Tesla stock because they were all attacking Elon, I went and bought Tesla. So I literally traded the opposite of what my emotions were telling me to do and what the media news headlines were trying to get me to do, because your opinion is shaped by what you read on Twitter. What you read on Twitter is manipulated by the mainstream media because they have the biggest reach. And when people share things on Twitter, they are sharing things that they saw in the mainstream media, or they're getting their thing from the mainstream media. The reality is that what you want to be doing is you want to be trading against the narrative every single time. 100% of the time, you want to be trading against the narrative and you want to stick to your thesis. And I just want to show you what that looks like. So today, the headlines are saying that we're about to get into World War III, or Israel is about to invade Iran, and the US is about to invade Iran. Today, theoretically, you should be selling, right? Let's mark this and say, let's say, assume that we bought, and let's check in a month. What happens if we would have bought Bitcoin today at 107,114? At the same time, let's actually review what our long-term thesis is, right? Our long-term thesis is pretty simple. Our long-term thesis is that we are in a cycle of extreme Bitcoin adoption. The adoption is no longer retail adoption. The adoption is very much macro adoption. It's institutional adoption. It's maybe even country adoption. And our thesis is that that is what this cycle is actually powered by. And we also believe that this is the stablecoin cycle, and that that's what's basically happening. So we've done multiple shows around stablecoins, stablecoin uses. We've done shows about the Genius Act. We've done shows about institutional adoption, and that's our thesis. That is exactly our thesis. Our thesis is that ETH will outperform Bitcoin for the next part of the cycle. Our thesis is that Solana will become the winning blockchain. And whether or not Israel invades Iran, or whether or not 𝗥𝗏 raises the debt ceiling today or next week, actually makes no difference to us, right? Because when we look at the thesis and we say, okay, here's the thesis. Richard Tang, who's the CEO of Binance, he says, look, major institutions are no longer asking whether to engage with crypto, but how. Custody solutions, ETFs, etc., etc., etc. He's talking about a thesis that's going to be for the next decade. The next decade will be about integration at scale. At the same time, you've got all these public companies holding Bitcoin. Just look at all these public companies. I can't even list them because every week there's a lot of public companies holding Bitcoin. It's not only companies holding Bitcoin. I don't know if you saw this. I was quite surprised and quite impressed to actually see this. But They actually started a MicroStrategy, but this time it was for SQD, the token that I've been telling you guys about. I told you guys this was going to happen, and now it actually happened. You've also got another thing which is very, very, very big, and it's this thing over here, right? So if Bitcoin closes quarter 2 above $119,000, now quarter 2 is closing in 18 days or 19 days, depending on where you are in the world. If Bitcoin closes at $119, which is not impossible because right now Bitcoin's at $108, and the top of Bitcoin was $111, so not very far away. But if Bitcoin closes at that number, MicroStrategy will post the largest quarterly earnings in human history for any company in the world. I mean, just try and digest that. Like, this company that just invests in Bitcoin is going to make more money, is going to post the highest quarterly earnings of all companies ever in human history just by holding Bitcoin. I mean, it's like the craziest thought that there ever is. But that's the reality of crypto. I mean, a lot of my friends worked very, very hard to make their money. And a lot of my friends just bought Bitcoin and landed up making their money on Bitcoin. And that's what the world is starting to see at the moment. The world is starting to see that if you just hold these assets, you'll actually end up making a lot of cash, right? Our thesis around stablecoins. Now the Genius Act is actually, the US Senate actually voted to proceed with the Genius Act, which means that all these rails that we've been speaking about for stablecoins, and the whole thesis that if you want to have a massive crypto market and a massive crypto economy, then you have to have stablecoin legislation. Because if you can't get stablecoins in and out and you can't trade stablecoins on blockchains, there's no chance that this thing can ever become anything. So the first thing is regulate stablecoins. The Genius Act got through the Senate yesterday. A couple more procedural votes tomorrow on democratic objections, but for sure this thing has actually gone through. Scott Bessent again came out yesterday and spoke about stablecoins.
Stablecoin legislation backed by U.S. Treasuries or T-bills will create a market that will expand U.S. dollar usage via these stablecoins all around the world. And I think that 2 trillion is a very reasonable number, and I could see it greatly exceeding that.
He's talking about $2 trillion of US dollars sitting on blockchain rails. $2 trillion. By the way, right now there's $250 million sitting on blockchain rails. He's talking about $2 trillion. Like, guys, I need to give you perspective that, you know, you can worry about the debt ceiling, or you can worry about the attack between Israel and Iran, or you can just say, look, there's going to be $2 trillion on the blockchain in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it is. Bank of America, all in on stables. All of a sudden, they're now talking about stable coins. The thesis just carries on. Plasma, remember I did the show about the stablecoin chain, which is actually launched by Tether. And remember they opened their deposits for $250 million. Well, they opened their deposits again last night for $500 million. They caught everyone by surprise. 33 minutes, they raised the $500 million. No one mentioned at all about the Israel potential attack on Iran. And so we see that the thesis is playing out in front of our eyes. I don't know if you guys read the headlines yesterday. Stripe bought a wallet provider called 𝗏𝗏 for an undisclosed amount. Remember that Stripe is one of the biggest the online and physical payment providers in the entire world. They recently bought a company called Bridge for $1.1 billion, and now they've bought a wallet. Okay, so when the biggest payment provider in the world, one of the biggest payment provider in the world, spends $1.1 billion on a bridge so that they could bridge stablecoins between one chain and another, and then they spend like an undisclosed amount, but probably a bigger amount on a wallet. What do you think they're doing? Josh, what do you think they're doing, bro? You don't think they might be wanting to become like a payment gateway for crypto, so anybody could just onboard crypto at any point in time? They wouldn't be doing that, right? Especially not to their millions and millions and millions and millions of users. Actually, I got the stats here of the number of users that they've got, but I have to find it in the chat here. Hold on a second. Stripe's total payment volume up to 1.4 trillion, up 38% from year on year. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are gargantuous, okay? So what's Stripe doing? They bought a wallet yesterday. They bought a bridge the day before. So bridge, they paid, not the day before, a while ago. They paid 1.1 billion for bridge. They acquired Privy, wallet as a service. Wallet is a service company which makes wallet creation. It means that anybody can create, any one of their vendors can actually create wallets and become a wallet provider. So enables them to create a full crypto marketplace, and this is exactly what Stripe's doing. So, well, this is exactly what's happening. There are two ways to look at this. You can have a thesis. You can stick to your thesis regardless of what the headlines are actually telling you, or you can trade on the headlines. But if you're going to trade on the headlines, then just make sure that you're doing the opposite of what the headlines are trying to get you to do. When they tell you Israel is invading Iran, you need to be buying, not selling. When they tell you that the US can't raise its debt ceiling, you need to be buying, not selling. When they tell you that Tesla, that Elon and Trump are having a fight, you need to be buying, not selling. I don't know what kind of person you are, and I don't know what your emotional tolerance is, and I don't know how you are moved by emotion. I know that I'm pretty much very moved by emotion, and that's why I make a rule. Whatever I feel like doing, I do the absolute opposite. I feel like buying ETH, I sell ETH. I feel like buying Sol, I sell Sol, etc., etc. I mean, it pretty much goes back to the same thing about if you want to make money, then what you sell when you buy when the media is trying to tell you it's the end of the world, and you sell when the media is telling you that markets are going to all-time highs. The same thing was like when you show the screen shares of your screen shares. That's usually the time to be selling. Now, I've tested that multiple times, and every time I've tested it, it's been 100% right. Every time that I've taken screenshots, and I have some friends, I'm actually just looking here in the chat. Every time that I've taken these trades, I've landed up making money. And every time that I fall into my emotional self, I'll end up getting wrecked. It happens every single time. And I bet you that if you go back to your trade history and your investment history, and you take a journal and you say to yourself, why did I sell or why did I buy? Most of the times you did it for the wrong reasons, or for what the media was trying to convince you was the right reasons. So I think, to summarize it, I think the media and the narrative are your worst enemy when you're an investor, unless you can do the opposite of what they say. And that's pretty much how I'd summarize it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've lost money as a result of trading with the mainstream narrative. Let me know if you've made money ever on the mainstream narrative. By the way, there is a strategy where you can make money. It's called news trading, right? So I know Josh is obsessed with news trading. Why? Because when he built the newsroom, he got these trade buttons. Josh, will these trade buttons actually ever be able to trade? When? So what you're going to do here is, as the news comes out, you're going to read the headlines, right? This is the newsroom on Banter Bubbles. You're going to read the headlines and you're going to say, what do they want me to do? And you do the opposite. So for example, let's just try and find something here. Okay, today there's no news. It's a bad news day today. So whatever they're trying to get you to do the opposite, and you'll be able to soon trade from the bubbles. You'll just say trade, but it's not, that feature is not available quite yet. Apparently in 2027, it'll be ready. 2027. No, it'll be ready much sooner than that. Definitely be ready than that. Okay. What else? Number one, guys. You saw the SQD announcement. I told you it was coming. They listed on Coinbase, and by the way, they listed on Coinbase. They listed on Binance. They now have a micro strategy actually buying SQD. So I think this token, remember we bought it at 6 cents, is now trading at, well, it looks 25 here, but it was at 29 earlier. Then another thing is, I want to show you one other thing very important. If any of you are trading Keeta, you know Keeta, we've spoken about Keeta quite a bit. Today, Keeta actually have a live YouTube. We can actually put this, guys, can you put this in the link? Josh, I'm sending it to you. The reason is they're doing a live demo of their system doing 10 million transactions per second, which will make it the fastest blockchain. I mean, it's like the fastest blockchain in the world, right? They're doing a live system, a live audited test by two companies. Two companies are going to audit them to see if they actually achieve 10 million transactions per second. Now, look, spoiler alert, I have spoken to the team and they've been running the test all week and they've been getting 10 million transactions per second all week. So I don't think they're going to fail. There is a chance that they will, but I don't think they're going to fail. And then when this happens, so here's the alpha that I'm hearing, and I don't know if this alpha is true. 𝗟𝗑'𝘀, the co-founder of Google and the ex-CEO of Google, he is an investor in Keeta. Now I can verify that, or at least it has been verified. He followed their Twitter, and I spoke to the team, and they told me Eric was an investor. There is a chance that 𝗟𝗏𝘀 will retweet when that 10 million transactions per second actually happens. Why? Because it is actually a very big thing. No blockchain's ever been able to do that. Even though Keeta theoretically is what they call a super DAG system. So let's watch it. There's a link below to the Keeta test. It's happening in about 3 hours. It's happening at, I think, 12 or 1. In about 3 hours, it's happening. Let's just see what time it's planned for. Keeta test. Live in 2 hours. So it's live in 2 hours. That's when it's actually happening. All right, then lastly, let's just look at we're actually in profit. Can you believe it? So we've got this account on Blofin. Blofin, for those of you who don't know, it's a non-KYC exchange, which means anybody can open an account on this exchange no matter where they live. And there is a link to the account below. Now, how it works is very simple. You go, hold on a second. You go to the link below. You sign up with the link below. And if you do, you may actually get a chance to win that account. Now, how we're going to trade this account is actually quite cool. So you use this over here. If you use this link over here, not only do you get $15 free as you open the account, which you can trade a 20x position. And so you're getting $300 worth of ETH immediately. Or you can actually do it on SQD as well. But in a month, so on the 10th of July, we're going to give away this account. So let me tell you how I'm going to trade this account, just so that you guys can understand. Right now, our liquidation price is what is our liquidation price? 2,190, right? As the price goes up, I'm going to keep adding leverage to this account, but in a responsible way, right? Not the James Wynn way, the other way. And then I'm going to give this account to one of the people that applied between now and the 10th of June. So go and do it. Otherwise, let's just take one last look at the bubbles. Not much going on today. I told you the bubbles are trading on the media narrative. We're trading on the fundamentals and the big thesis, and never shall the two mix. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to bring my friend Alessio on. He is the king of not trading on news. You really want to watch the charting show with him tomorrow. So see you tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.